very good morning to you and welcome to the news at 10 on the network service of the NTA, reaching you live from Abuja. I am Muslima Sholebo.
And I am Chibobi Walton, and many thanks for joining us. The headlines.
Federal government promises to protect the nation's citizens in the face of coronavirus pandemic.
No more foreign trips for public and civil servants till further notice.
Government has banned all forms of travels out of the country for whatever reason.
Legal practitioners say Nigerians have a critical role to play in complementing the efforts of law.
We believe that this is the time for us to actually understand that the law itself has its own limit.
Plus, federal government offers ASU new proposal.
We have what we can call concrete proposals that we can take back to our members. We will do our best.
The federal government says it will explore all alternatives towards ensuring that the nation's citizens are fully protected in the face of the coronavirus pandemic.
And President Muhammadu Buhari, who stated this at a briefing session with members of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council, said Nigeria has foreseen the attendant economic problems. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has the details.
Sequel to the coronavirus pandemic, oil prices in the international market have been oscillating between $29 and $30 per barrel as opposed to the benchmark price of $57 for Nigeria's 2020 budget. President Muhammadu Buhari said although many other variables, including production cost and political impact, determine the oil prices, Nigeria is committed to seeing how to survive the fallen oil prices as the problem had been envisaged. He said protecting the people from the vagaries of international economic fortunes and associated challenges is a task that must be done by his administration. While stressing the importance of education and healthcare, the president maintained that if the people are adequately educated, they will neither accept any form of mismanagement by leadership nor allow themselves to be manipulated by those promoting ethnic and religious sentiments. President Buhari promised that impulse in agriculture, education, and healthcare would continue as much as practicable. Chairman of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council, Professor Doyin Salami, had earlier painted sobering scenarios of what could happen to the nation's economy if the COVID-19 pandemic lasted for too long. These include slower growth as the supply and demand sides of global economy would be affected, uncertainty which would erode confidence and lead governments to act unilaterally instead of cooperatively, further drop in oil prices, and lockdowns gaining grounds around the world. There will also be oil glut, trade imbalance, drop in foreign reserve, as well as increasing joblessness. The Economic Advisory Council noted that many countries may go into economic recession and therefore advocated hard work for Nigeria to keep its head above the waters. It also recommended, amongst others, a possible revision of the 2020 budget with priority spending on healthcare, reprioritization of expenditure on infrastructure to focus on projects nearing completion with pro-poor effects, curtailing recurrent expenditure, and boosting of government revenue. Members of the Economic Advisory Council stressed that the projections may seem dire, but the worst may be avoided with hard work and scrupulous implementation of policies. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
And still with the COVID-19 outcomes, federal government has ordered the postponement of the forthcoming National Sports Festival, scheduled to begin later this month in Benin, Edo State.
The president, who gave the order after a meeting with the Minister of Sports, Sunday Dare, and the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Olorunimbe Mamora, said the action is in the overall interest of national health security. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has the details.
The strategic meeting between President Muhammadu Buhari as well as the Ministers of Health and Sports critically analyzed whether or not it is safe for the National Sports Festival Edo 2020 to go on as planned in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. The president, who was briefed on both the preparations for the festival as well as efforts at containing COVID-19 in the country, maintained that it is too risky for the sporting fiesta to continue as planned.
Mr. President took the decision and gave the directive that the National Sports Festival, Christian Edo 2020, should be postponed as a precautionary move against the spread of COVID-19. The Ministry of Youth and Sport recognizes the fact that a lot of resources, a lot of effort on the part of our athletes has gone into preparing for Edo 2020, 36 states and the FCT. But we think that staying healthy to be able to compete in not just Edo 2020, but other sporting competitions and tournaments is important. So the interest of the health of our sportsmen and women, it's paramount at this time. But beyond that, we're looking at 11,500 people in Edo State for 2 weeks. And we think that that is a huge number. We think that we should go by just what the Minister of Health has said. They have done extensive review. And we just want to say we have the interest and the welfare of our sportsmen and women at heart. And we know that not too far from now, we'll be able to reenact the festival in Edo.
The Minister of State for Health, Dr. Olorunimbe Mamora, described the postponement of Edo 2020 as inevitable.
And one of the things that we need to give attention to is the possibility of people carrying the virus even without knowing, what we call asymptomatic people. That is, they carry it, but they don't even know because they are not manifesting symptoms. And what we know so far is that up to 80–81% of people will either be asymptomatic, that is not showing any symptoms, or where they show symptoms, the symptoms will just be mild to moderate. And this is a major source of what we call community transmission. So the principle of social distancing has to be respected. That is, preventing or advising against congregation of large number of people. Starting from the National Sports Festival that we have decided to postpone, that also extends even to religious gatherings or any other gathering that you have large number of people. It is not advisable at this point in time.
A new date for the National Sports Festival will be announced in due course. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
And sequel to the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic, which led to the cancellation of the National Sports Festival, the National Youth Service Corps announces the suspension of the ongoing orientation course for the 2020 Batch A Stream 1 Corps members. The Corps members shall be posted to commence their primary assignment forthwith, while they shall be invited back to the orientation camps when the situation improves, as was the case a few years ago when the nation was confronted by the Ebola virus. So far, no Corps members or camp officials has contracted the virus.
Still on the coronavirus pandemic, the federal government has inaugurated a 14-member presidential task force on the control of COVID-19 in Nigeria.
Secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, who inaugurated the task force in Abuja, mandated members to strengthen the national response strategy for COVID-19. Mitaire Ikbe reports.
The Presidential Task Force for the Control of COVID-19 in Nigeria was constituted by President Muhammadu Buhari to deepen multi-sectoral approach to the national response. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustapha, who is also chairman of the Presidential Task Force, told members that Nigeria's swiftness in dealing with the index and contact cases of COVID-19 has been globally acknowledged, and the country cannot afford to let down its guard, particularly in the areas of testing, containment, and management of the disease.
One is to strengthen the national response strategy, particularly in the areas of testing, containment, and the management of COVID-19. Two, strengthen collaboration with all tiers of government, private sector, faith-based organizations, civil societies, donors, and partners. And three, build awareness among the populace. And four, direct the deployment of any relevant national asset when necessary. Five, lay a foundation for scientific and medical research to address all emerging infectious diseases. And six, advise government on the declaration of national emergency as part of the containment measures when necessary.
The Presidential Task Force for the Control of COVID-19 has 9 ministers among its members and has been given a time frame of 6 months to complete its assignment. In Abuja, Mitaire Ikben, NTA News.
The federal government has banned all foreign trips for public and civil servants till further notice. This was one of the decisions reached by the Presidential Task Force for the Control of COVID-19 after its inaugural meeting. Mitaire Ikben tells you more.
Briefing the media on the outcome of its inaugural meeting, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustapha, who is also the chairman of the Presidential Task Force for the Control of COVID-19, directed the Ministry of Health and its agencies to upscale the nation's health emergency system to the highest level and put in place measures to further curb the spread of COVID-19. He said it has also become expedient to place an embargo on foreign trips.
Government has banned all forms of travels out of the country for whatever reason, whether for meetings, bilateral, multilateral, conferences, seminars, workshops, presentations, negotiations, and any form of other ceremonies. This ban will remain in place until further notice and until the situation of the pandemic nature of the coronavirus abates. With regards to the general public, we want to advise strongly the citizens in their own interests should cancel or postpone all non-essential travel abroad, including business and vacation trips.
The Presidential Task Force urged anyone returning to Nigeria from any country at all to strictly self-isolate for 14 days in their homes, in accordance with the guidelines of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control.
We believe strongly that this particular pandemic is the most important public health emergency of our generation, and we must treat it with every seriousness that it deserves.
Nigerians were also advised to continue to maintain high level of sanitation and hygiene as part of measures to contain the spread of COVID-19 in Nigeria. In Abuja, Mitaire Ikben, NTA News.
We'll go on a short break now. Please stay with us.
We can agree on 80% or 60% funding of overheads.
This is NTA News 24 broadcasting from Abuja. You can watch us anywhere, anytime on the following platforms. For more information, information, log on to our website www.nta.ng or join us on our social media handles, Twitter at NTA News 24, Facebook at NTA News 24.
For comments, suggestions and inquiries, send an email to news24@nta.gov.ng or call us on the following numbers.
NTA News 24,
news and more news.
It's good to have you back with us. Now, if you were a passenger on the British Airways 75 flight that arrived Lagos on the 13th of March 2020, then stay at home and isolate yourself for 14 days.
And this plea is from the Lagos State Commissioner for Health in the wake of the third confirmed case of coronavirus in Nigeria. Joy Ken Abakboya reports.
The newly imported case, a 30-year-old Nigerian female who arrived the country aboard the British Airways after a 10-day stay in the United Kingdom, is currently being held in Isolation 2 at the mainland hospital, Yaba, Lagos.
We've started the contact tracing process. Thankfully, she obeyed the instructions and she confined herself to her home, where she's only been in contact with her immediate family. That helps us tremendously because it limits our contact tracing to the manifest of the flight, which is BA75, that arrived on the 13th of March. We will be reaching out to every member, every passenger on that flight, as we did with the index case.
Professor Akin Abayomi disclosed that 3 more suspected cases, 2 Nigerian travelers from the UK and the United States, and another from Cairo, have been quarantined and are undergoing tests. In Lagos, Joy Ken Abakboya, NTA News.
And self-isolation for 2 weeks, as well as reporting any suspected case of the coronavirus to relevant authorities, has been identified as measures towards ensuring that coronavirus disease does not spread across Nigeria. Speaking on NTA's current affairs program, Nigeria Today, public health specialist Dr. Isaac Abuja advised Nigerians against complacency, urging strict compliance to personal hygiene.
In our own situation here in Nigeria, we're lucky it has not got that far yet. But we are instructed to be careful, to be watchful, to be diligent, even as much as the health staff, the health personnel are diligent in tracking cases, trying to confirm, trying to make sure that this virus doesn't spread. We as individuals also have very huge role to play. Sure. We must have to make sure that we are our neighbors' keepers. If you know of somebody who is sick with some of these symptoms that we describe, or with these symptoms that we describe, and the person is not talking, you talk.
He also commended the government's postponement of the sports festival in Edo State, stating that such a large gathering is not advisable at this point in time.
There's no way you can be competing in an environment like we were supposed to have, then you will not be close to somebody.
Have physical contact.
And you will not be having physical contact with the person.
Sure.
And if anything goes wrong, if there's only one person that comes down with the virus in a crowded area like that, I think it will spread very fast.
Nigeria Today is aired live every weekday by 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24.
The Senate is considering the amendment of the 2020 Appropriation Act, which was passed last year, December, following the impact of the coronavirus on global economy.
Meanwhile, this was contained in the interim report of the Senate Joint Committee on Finance, Appropriation and National Planning. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports.
While Nigeria's Minister of Health is busy with precautionary and preventive measures against the coronavirus, the Nigerian Senate is busy working out legislative framework that will cushion the effect of the virus on the nation's economy as a result of the sharp fall in global oil price. Its committees on finance, appropriation and national planning were mandated by the Senate to engage relevant government ministries and agencies.
The downsizing of the Appropriation Act as passed by the National Assembly is inevitable.
While personnel costs at all times must be met. We can agree on 80% or 60% funding of overheads.
I mean, there are certain things that we need to do. We need to look at cost of governance. We need to look at a lot of duplicate agencies that we have.
The Joint Committee called on the federal government to transmit the Petroleum Industry Bill to the National Assembly for consideration.
That the revenue generating agencies must be alive to their responsibility in line with the Fiscal Responsibility Act passed by the National Assembly.
Bills that seek to amend the Child Right Act to prohibit persons convicted of rape from working with children for the provision of certain rights and privileges for the older persons to ensure their socio-economic well-being passed second reading.
As a day will hardly pass without reading or viewing the media cases of sexual assault suffered by Nigerian children,
including the freedom of older persons to make individual choices, respect for interdependence and caring relationships of older persons.
Let us be conscious of the fact that there is a segment of our society that needs extra care.
Just like it's done outside this country, where if you go to the bus, you find out that the old people have their own place designated.
The legislators have advised the Nigerian Correctional Services to adequately profile inmates and separate them accordingly to avoid lumping first offenders with hardened criminals. Senator Uche Ekwunife moved the motion. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
Now let's go to some financial matters. President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, has urged the World Bank to come to the aid of Nigeria in her efforts at poverty alleviation in the country. Senator Lawan made the appeal when the new World Bank country director for Nigeria, Shubham Chowdhury, led a delegation of the bank officials on a courtesy visit to his office. Lawan said, "This is the time Nigeria needs the World Bank the most, when the coronavirus, the global pandemic, is making it difficult to raise revenue for the implementation of the 2020 budget." The World Bank country director for Nigeria, Chowdhury, observed that the world will support Nigerian government's programs, particularly as it relates to poverty alleviation. That is our ultimate goal.
Where we are supposed to borrow the money from is facing some challenges. And this is the time that the World Bank should stand out to come to the aid of Nigeria.
And so part of the exercise we're going through right now is in thinking about our next round of the financing that will be available for Nigeria.
The House of Representatives is seeking alteration of Part 1 of the second schedule of the Constitution to enable the transfer of some items from the exclusive legislative list to the concurrent list.
National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that the alteration will enhance decision-making on issues of priority.
The lawmakers, while debating the bill sponsored by House Chief Whip Mohammed Tahir Mungunu, noted the concentration of powers in the center as provided in the 1999 Constitution, which over the years has led to agitations for devolution of powers to states in order to achieve true federalism.
Matters relating to police should be moved to the concurrent legislative list so that states can also have their own police.
The advantage of this will be everyone to your own advantage and everyone to manage your disadvantage.
As we promised, this house will be a transparent house and a house of accountability, and there will be reforms. This is one of such bills because it goes to the very heart of our federation.
The bill passed second reading and was forwarded to the Constitution Review Committee for further legislative action. Other bills that passed second reading include a bill to amend the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act and a bill to establish Federal College of Education, Katsina Ala in Benue State. The House also resolved to set up an ad hoc committee to carry out an investigation on abandoned federal government properties across the country and the failure of the 3.4 billion naira solar power project in the 6 geopolitical zones and the FCT.
Despite the huge investments on the rural power projects, most of them were found shortly after commissioning in 2014 not to have been properly implemented, while others were outrightly abandoned till date.
a motion urging the federal government to evaluate the economic implications of reduced demand for crude oil in the light of emerging preference for electric-powered vehicles was adopted.
The request for crude oil is drastically going down. And to worsen matters now, the almighty coronavirus has also added, to this very pathetic plight.
The need to investigate the death of a player of Nasarawa United Football Club, Martins Chineme, during a football match, and a call on authorities to check frequent infiltration of armed bandits into areas of Kano State from Zamfara and Katsina States were adopted at Tuesday's plenary. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
Still on legislative matters, this time, the House Committee on Information, National Orientation, Ethics and Value has acknowledged the need for more funds for government media agencies in the country to achieve set objectives as the voice of the nation.
And this was an observation by the committee chairman Olusegun Odebumi during an oversight on the 2019 Budget Appropriation Act to the National Broadcasting Commission, News Agency of Nigeria and Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. National Assembly correspondent Abdullahi Aminu reports.
National Broadcasting Commission was the first agency oversighted by the committee members. Professor Armstrong Idachaba says the agency has 5 million naira releases out of the 13 million naira capital appropriation and 100% overhead of the 2019 budget. At the News Agency of Nigeria and Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, the helmsmen acknowledged the support of the legislature to the federal government's effort to ensure digital transition in the country's broadcasting world.
We have 5 foreign offices, but because of finance, we cannot operate them. Therefore, only one in New York is currently in operation.
I'm sure when we change these transmitters, we will see the effect, and the effect will be an increased revenue.
I promise this committee will continue to support you so that you can give the good meats and the deeds to this nation.
The members made observations on the need for more than casual attention to the activities of the News Agency of Nigeria, limited capacity of transmission equipments by FRCN, and the need to initiate public-private partnership for the development of the corporation's land in Imo State with a view to generating revenue. In Abuja, Abdullahi Aminu, NTA News.
All right, you're still watching the news at 10 on NTA News 24, reaching you live from Abuja. More reports ahead after this break. Just stay with us.
Advertising your goods and services on the right channel gives you an edge over your competitors. NTA News 24 has all the platforms for your target audience. The station is on DSTV channel 419, GoTV channel 46, StarTimes channel 101, and Free TV channel 703. With our digital format and wide range, we can reach your customers in next to no time. We are eager to promote your business, goods and services. So, partner with us for a very rewarding business experience. For more information, please call Henry on 0803-379-0884 or visit our office at NTA Headquarters, Area 11, Garki, Abuja. NTA News 24. News and more news.